200-foot tall water tower. Waterfall.
Very light on me. You good?
On this episode, we're one step closer to starting an engine. But first, we got to go ahead and hook up the battery power and complete our cabling right here at the back of the vehicle. One thing I'm going to do is put a kill switch with a removable key in it. That way, when I leave it somewhere or driving it, you pull that out, it's not going anywhere. So the first thing I'm going to do is connect it, and then the rest of the way up to the starter. So we got to do some work to this main positive cable, and then we're ready to go ahead and hook up the power and start testing the lights. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and get this kill switch entered, and then work on putting all our lights in place so we can know where we are, if those are all working properly, and eventually lead up to trying to start the engine. So real quick, get you a red top group 25 battery. It's the one with 2 posts on the top and no post on the sides. Fits perfect in there, and that's what that box is made for. Let's put some wires to it. First thing we're going to do is remove the seat, make sure we get the location correct for our 150 amp battery kill switch. So there's pretty limited space. It's going to go right here in this area here. We'll lay it out from behind, draw a little pilot hole. Okay, with the kill switch in, we found some hardware in a hardware pack. Just use that to kind of attach it. And we'll have to take this back out and put the carpet in, obviously. But for now, we want it to secure it because we don't want it moving around. We got to shorten this cable run to here, and then the cable run goes to the starter. So that's going to take a minute because I'm going to have to redo the ends. So let's run that cable run. I'm going to jump back here to the tail lights, and the new Cobra kit comes with these LED square lights or rectangular lights. And so there are 3 wires, so your turn signal and your brake all come through one light. So in order for them to work with the system, because you have 4 wires that come back here, you have a ground, you have a parking light, a brake light, and a turn signal light. So obviously 4 doesn't go into 3. Your kit comes with this converter. So what we have to do is, it says to do it in the dash, but since we have that turn signal system, the deal we did here with the buttons, that's not going to work. We're going to do it right here, which is where we need it anyway. We can mount it just underneath here, and we've got plenty of wires to connect everything. So it's pretty straightforward. We're going to connect, right turn, left turn. We'll take both brake wires and connect to it, and then out the other end, you get 3 wires. So 3 will go to brake, ground, and park, and then you got a left and right turn signal. So pretty straightforward, but I'm going to do that, get this all wired together, clean it up, put it underneath here, and then we'll put some clips on either end and connect the tail lights, and that should be the tail lights on the rear ends. I know that's a lot said. It's a lot to do. Drop back and got the tail lights all connected here in the back, and what I did is I used connectors so we can unplug them and plug them in as we take the body on and off. Got the battery cable ran, cut it to size from the kill switch to the starter, and I've got all my wires connected to the starter as well. So what that means is it's time to put some power on it and see how well we did on the wiring. So I'm going to do this right now. Let's see how it turns out. I did have the kill switch out, so there's no power on the car. So I'm about to turn the switch and see what happens. So one thing to be careful of is making sure that the ignition switch is away from any metal because it can arc out. But I should be able to see the gauges come on and be able to turn the lights on to see those come on, as well as operate the turn signals. That's pretty much about it for now. So let's see if we got it right or if we blow the fusible link. Okay, it's got power. Fuel pump. So all the gauges got power. My turn signals got power like they're supposed to. Parking lights are working in the back, but I'm not seeing power on the gauges. Should see light on the gauges. So there's gauge light power. Gauge power is working. You see my volts is working. Fuel's reading fuel. Speedometer's up and running. I'm gonna try to bump it. Let's see if it'll bump. It will not. The taillights are working, but something loose. This is the part where I spared you from the about a week and a half of anguish I've had getting everything to work properly. First of all, I burnt up the first two switches I had here because sometimes when you hook ground to power directly, that's not supposed to happen. So I had to replace these. I needed a high beam, high low switch to finish the entire circuitry for the headlight switch. Now they all work properly. And then I forgot to put there's a whole nother ground system just for the gauge lights that I totally forgot to hook up. Then when I got it hooked up, all the bulbs had to be twisted a certain way to work correctly. All that said and done, we now have everything fully functional. So you hear everything run there. Turn signal switch, that's pretty cool. Both work really well. So this was quite a difficulty for me figuring out what connects to the turn signal module is normally open or normally closed. Ends up being the blue wire and not the yellow wire, which is the normally open switch. That way when you just momentarily push it, it sends a signal, the thing works. That's been the biggest frustration, but now we got all our lights connected. So you see my halos up there, nice blue lights. Turn on the headlights, we got a high-low, high beam indicators working. And then obviously the test is making sure that your turn signals still work. So you see that, how the halo lights up as a turn signal is pretty cool. That's gonna look awesome. And then hazards obviously work. And the rears have worked the whole time. So we've gotten everything working. Turn the hazards off. Now these do light up green if you hook up the other side of them, but I could not figure out, what would be really cool is if you push it and it blinked green. I couldn't figure out how to do it, and I just, before I burned up the switches again, I just went go with the win I could get, and that was the win I could get. So next up is we're gonna start this engine, but I don't have my side pipes back from the ceramic coater. And I'm a little concerned that's a little loud, but I still think we can hook up the ground straps, the last thing I have to do, and we can at least bump it over and see what it does. And I need to put oil in it. I haven't put oil in it yet. That's electrical. Man, let me tell you about the oil pan saga. Saw me put the wrong one in on the engine, then I ordered the Moroso specifically for the Factory 5 kits. But as you can see, the depths are quite different, which is what we want. So it requires a new pickup tube. Well, guess what? Moroso don't make their pickup tube anymore, but Canton does. And with Canton, pickup tube doesn't work with Moroso pan because the holes are in a different location. So now we got the Canton pan with the Canton pickup tube, so we can put it all in and try to start this engine. Anybody want an oil pan? I got lots of them. And that turned out nice. Went with the black powder coated Canton 4.6 kit car pan, and now she's tucked up in there nicely. Now we got the right oil pan in, it's time to fill up the car with the fluids. And I'm gonna start with the radiator fluid or the coolant. And the best way to fill up the block is to take off the thermostat housing and a thermostat and fill it up from there. Now that I have all the electrical working, I've put the ground strap to the engine. We've got all the fluids in the engine. We've got oil, we got water. I think what I don't have is my side pipes. I really don't want to crank this thing up and it'd be way too loud. Those are gonna be ready in just a few days where I had them ceramic coated. So before we get into actually running this thing, I'm just gonna bump it just to see if the starter's any good, because it cranked up when I first got the donor. So let's just bump it and see what it does. Truly, I have not tested this. This is truly a first test. Up. And a good first test. I got nothing. It's worth a try. So now I know I need to troubleshoot before we get the side exhaust to figure out why the starter's not bumping. Gotta say, I'm a little disappointed, but that's okay. It's the fun of solving problems. Hi, it's me, the complete dummy. I totally forgot you gotta have the clutch pushed in. There's a neutral switch. So let's try this again. All I wanna do is hear the starter hit. That's all I wanna do. If it fires up on the first crank, that'll be a truly interesting endeavor. Let's go for it. First crank, first time. Woo! That was loud.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking the first crank, man. So now we know it runs. It's the next day here. We're gonna wait till we get our side exhaust on before we crank it up again and kind of tune everything out. But now we kind of finished up the wiring, got everything tight, and let me show you what I installed. As you know, we're going with a push button start and not the key that came with the wiring harness, thanks to Wire Diet. Well, that system runs off a digital guard dog. This system right here is pretty straightforward. I mean, you pretty much just, the wires even match up the colors to be able to connect it. But I'll mount this after we put in the driver's side footbox aluminum. And I can do that now because I have ran all my wires, including wires back to my amplifier. Although I'm not going to completely install it now, I at least got it connected through to the ground and to the positive side of the kill switch. That way when you kill it, it all dies out. You got your remote wire that connects up to a fuse up in the fuse box. And then you've got a base control wire. So lastly will be to get a Bluetooth system to work off your phone and connect the two speakers. We'll do all that after the carpet's in. So that's it for wiring. Last steps before mounting the body is to put this footbox aluminum on. You want to make sure you got all your wiring done because you cannot get back up in here unless you got really tiny hands and really skinny little tiny arms. So now we're going to mount this and then we'll be ready to put the body on after we drive around a little bit. Got to drive around a little bit. I'm going to bore you with putting on these panels. You've seen me do that in previous episodes, but now we got the driver footbox aluminum all complete. Let's put the side exhaust on and fire this puppy back up. It's been a little bit of an adventure for my exhaust because I had it powder coated at first, and powder coating will not stand up to the temperatures. So now I had to take it somewhere else and get them ceramic coated. Now these are high temperature ceramic coatings up to 1,000 degrees. So this will do really well. So we'll mount these things and start it up. That's the exhaust installed. Went ahead and put all 4 bolts in. You got to kind of shave off a bolt here to get it past the header. Got everything tightened up, connected to the car. It's time to fire it up and see what it sounds like with exhaust on it. I need the key. All right. Oh, this is fun. Unlock it with the key. She's ready to crank. All right, we got smoke. I hope it's just warming up. Yeah. That's just the headers warming up. Yeah. Now I'm gonna check the fluids. Okay, check the fluids, everything's good. It revs up real like high right there, kind of high rev. You hit it, and it's just like it's getting too much fuel. So I'm gonna have to check something out with the computer. And also my oil pressure gauge is peaking out. So I don't know why that is. It's getting oil pressure, so that's a good thing. But I want to make sure that gauge is working. RPM gauge is not working. Now, there's a few little tricks we got to do to make sure that's working right. It may actually have to be calibrated. But for all in all, it's running good. This is officially a go-kart. I don't think we're going to put it down and drive around today, but I want to make sure that oil pressure gauge is working properly before I do that.